So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming today. So my name is Lourdes Sanchez, and I'm parent coordinator for the Network 16, and we are gonna have a Learn.Plan.Succeed. Also, if you not speak Spanish, you can choose the interpreter. In the bottom, you can choose Spanish. Let you know, this session will be recorded, and we want to share this knowledge with the parents who were unable to attend it. All previous sessions can be found in the YouTube channel, and they will be in the chat. We will have presentation followed by conversation with Maria Buson and Jenny Soluga. The chats will be open to the meeting to allow participants to type a question. Please keep in mind that we might not have time to get all the questions in the chat during the session. Please mute your microphone, be respectful when your comments, be ready when you're sharing, and to sign to our newsletter, please visit, and the last will be in the chat. Join us for the next presentation today at 4 p.m. So ask the experts, and tomorrow, Friday 8, with the ISAC post-secondary chat by FAFSA at 11 to 12. Again, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lourdes Sanchez, and I'm parent coordinator for the Network 10 and 16 located in Perry University and Bowen High School. So thank you for coming today to Learn.Plan.Succeed, making post-secondary decisions. Our presenter today is Maria Busion and Jenny Suluga. Maria and Jenny, could you want to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be with you today. I am Maria Busio, and I serve as the Director of Post-Secondary Pathways.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jenny Suluaga, and I serve as the Chicago Public Schools Director of Alumni Persistence and Success.
So now you can follow the presentation.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, welcome, everyone. We're so excited to be here with you today because this is a very important time of the year for our students. They're getting ready to make decisions about what they're going to be doing in life beyond high school. So what we would like to do today is introduce Learn.Plan.Succeed and talk a little bit about each of the pathways that are recognized under Learn.Plan.Succeed. So the first thing I want to share with you is that Learn.Plan.Succeed is a graduation requirement for students who are going to be graduating from Chicago Public Schools, and that includes all of the other schools that are associated to us, including charters and options and contract schools and the such. Learn.Plan.Succeed is a commitment from Chicago Public Schools to support our students beyond just the high school diploma. And one way that we do that is by recognizing that our students may have options that are way beyond just college. If we could take just a moment to mute ourselves. Thank you. So one of the things that we are doing and that we'll talk about today is post-secondary and what that means. For us with Learn.Plan.Succeed, it means that we were able to expand the definition of what post-secondary success involves. And that includes college, and in the past, we usually included college and military. And now we're also recognizing employment, apprenticeship programs, job training programs, service year, and in some cases, other. Our students oftentimes come up with ideas of what they would like to do after high school that don't necessarily fit into these 6 categories. So we'll be talking a little bit about that today. Now, I did mention that now is a time of year when our students are starting to make decisions about what they're going to do, and so they're starting to take some of those final steps. And the question that our students are being presented with is, student, which path will you choose? This is a very difficult question. And one of the things that we have learned in the Office of School Counseling Post-Secondary Advising is that many of our students are going to be taking some final steps, making some decisions, and they may be the first in their families to go through this process. So it's really critically important that this conversation start at home, beyond just what we're doing here in the schools, also having the conversations at home. And it's never too early or too late to start those conversations at home. It may take a little bit of research. It may take a little bit of getting to know some of the adults that are supporting your students at the schools, but we're here to break down that process and to help you as best we can before they leave us. And we will be here during the summer. So Jenny's going to be talking a little bit about that in the types of supports that we provide over the summer to ensure that our students truly make it to that first day, first week, first month, first year of whatever it is that they're trying to do or wanting to do in life beyond high school. So let me turn it over to Jenny to talk a little bit about college.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. Even in starting to talk about one of the first pathways, college, I will mention that as Maria had shared, Learn.Plan.Succeed is a commitment by all of the adults in the building and throughout Chicago public schools to support students in their post-secondary pathway. And in my role as Director of Alumni Persistence and Success, part of that is not only getting them to decide on their pathway, but like Maria mentioned, helping them throughout summer access their pathway of choice and then continue to persist. When we talk about the college pathway, we not only care that the students enroll in college that are interested in that pathway, but that they persist and move through to graduation. So there's a continued commitment on behalf of the Chicago Public Schools to support alumni throughout their post-secondary journey. So that takes us to the first pathway, being college. Next slide. And when we talk about college, what are we referring to? It's really any pathway in the higher education sphere that awards a degree or credential. So that includes two-year colleges, which could be our city colleges of Chicago or some of our community colleges in the suburbs. We're talking about four-year private colleges. Some ones you may know locally include DePaul, Loyola, National Louis. That includes our four-year public colleges and universities. You may know University of Illinois, Chicago, Northeastern Illinois University, Chicago State, or even University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. But it also includes online schools and vocational trade and career schools. So if you are enrolling in those credential or degree seeking programs, this is the pathway that you are on. Next slide. So how can I pursue this pathway? When we talk about pursuing a college pathway, we really kind of break it into two pieces of advising for both our students and as we accompany our families in these conversations. And that's really around match and fit. So when we talk about the first part, what should I consider when comparing schools? There are a lot of different criteria that you can think of. There are thousands of colleges out there and thousands of opportunities. So it can be a little intimidating to think, how do I start narrowing the choices down? And see, these are some criteria that you think of. When I was working through this presentation with Maria, one of the things this reminded me of is that in Chicago public schools and as parents, if you've taken your students through the high school selection process, you've already as a family gone through so many of these fit criteria and thinking about what high school makes most sense for you. So this is a little bit of a parallel process when you start to think about life after high school and what criteria might we consider in that. So some of those include, number one, program of study. So does the college, like did the high school, have programs of study that your student is interested in pursuing? There are a lot of great colleges out there, but if you want to be a nurse and they don't have a nursing certificate or nursing program, that's probably not the best college option for you. Another criteria to consider is location. Does your student want to stay close to home? Do they want to be a commuter student, meaning that they drive or take public transportation to college? Or are they more interested in a going away experience, being outside the city of Chicago, outside the state of Illinois, what location is most desirable to them and makes most sense for your family. The admissions requirements, I'm going to talk a little bit about that when we talk about what we're referring to as match, but does your student meet the admission requirements necessary to be admitted into this college or university? Accreditation, there's a little note on that there, that the college that they're choosing is an accredited institution, meaning that by the United States Department of Education, the State Board of Ed, all of these governing entities award accreditation, meaning that the college is in good standing and is providing a good quality education and degree and certificate for the students. Affordability and cost of attendance go hand in hand. Is this a college option that makes financial sense for your student and family? And do they have scholarships and other financial aid programs available? And then, of course, and a really important piece of fit, making sure that this is the right fit, is the student supports on campus. So what does the population, the student population look like? What are the faculty supports? What clubs and other activities are there on campus? And are those the activities that are of interest to your student? The other side of fit is match. And really, in a nutshell, match is it an academic match for your student? And when we talk about match, that means based on their grade point average, the grades that they earn throughout their high school career, and in some cases, their SAT score. Some schools are test optional, but with those two pieces of information, will this school, first of all, admit the student, and will the student be ready for the rigor of that campus, and will they find it challenging and the right academic match for them? We break that down into three different categories. Safety schools would mean that the match is their academic criteria are a safe match for acceptance. They will be accepted if they apply, most likely. A reach means they can apply, but it's a little bit, their academic current portfolio might not match that college's or institution's admissions requirements. So it's not a guaranteed, it's actually a little bit challenging for them to be admitted. And matches, like we just said, it's the perfect match. It's more likely than not that they would be admitted based on their academic profile. So that's a little bit about pursuing this pathway and the fit and match criteria. Next steps, research, and I added visit colleges. So different schools serve different purposes. I was at a school this week and reviewing award letters with students, and they were like, all of this looks really good, but how do I know which one's for me? And I suggested that they spend their spring break going to 5 different campuses. Get on that campus with your family, walk around, have coffee or something to drink, and see how it feels. Look at the buildings, talk to students. But it's really important that in your research, you try to incorporate some college visits in your preparation. Narrow down your list. You don't want to apply to 20 colleges. It's overwhelming and it's a lot of emails and communication and paperwork. So ideally, you want to limit to 3 to 5 colleges, maybe up to 10. I'm going to add that. But you do want to narrow down your list because there are fees that are attached to it, and you can request a fee waiver. But even if it is not of cost, it's still an overwhelming process to have so many options out there. Take the SAT. We're so lucky here in Chicago Public Schools that all juniors must take the SAT and take it within the school year. Draft and finalize a college essay if required, not required at every university, but it can often be a really important piece of the puzzle in your application if you're going for one of those reach schools. Well thought out and well-written essay might be the factor that gets you admitted. And of course, asking for letters of recommendations, building relationships. If your student is younger, not a senior, if they're a freshman, sophomore, junior, or even younger than that, are they building their resume, their activity profile, and building their list of teachers and other mentors in their life that would be willing and able to write them recommendation letters. Complete scholarship and financial aid applications, and of course, provide all supplementary information. Lots of good links in the deck that I'm sure you'll get after this. Next. Maria.
So let's talk a little bit about employment. Employment is one of those paths that oftentimes we hear students talk about and consider as they're getting ready to leave us. And they do it because they're thinking of balancing maybe college and a little bit of work, or they are trying to take a break from high school and education and credentials, and they just want to work. So let's talk a little bit about what that means. Oftentimes, the questions that we get from students have to deal with what is a career and what is a job? One way to look at this is that oftentimes jobs are what pay the bills. It could be full-time, it could be part-time. Oftentimes when our students are graduating from high school, these employment opportunities may or may not include benefits. So that is one thing that oftentimes when we talk to students about, that is a very new concept to them. Retirement plans, medical benefits, that sort of thing. Jobs typically do not require some kind of specialized degree or credential, but they sometimes do require some specific skills. And a lot of times those specific skills can be built on the job. When we talk about careers, think of it almost like a number of jobs and experiences lead up to a career or a journey throughout life. And a lot of times the career is really built on long-term professional goals and aspirations and ambitions. And oftentimes they do require some kind of credential or upskilling. And they do oftentimes involve a variety of opportunities that may include some type of benefit, including retirement and medical and that sort of thing. Now, a lot of times when we talk to our students, for them, the concept of living expenses and that sort of thing is a new concept, because up until they leave us, many of them have relied heavily on their families for this type of experience. So what you see on the screen is just to kind of give you an idea, the typical expenses that our students are going to accrue. And so I've just circled in this purple box for a person that has no children, and we have one here for 1 and 2 and 3 children, and you can kind of look at that. But these are estimates for the areas in Chicago, Naperville, and Elgin. So these are averages of what may be required for food and childcare and medical and some of the typical expenses that are associated with being an independent person. So this sometimes helps us in explaining to students in a number or money type of discussion, the kind of credentialing that they may need and the kind of opportunities that might be available. The question that really comes from our students is oftentimes, is this a good pay rate? Am I getting enough for what I need, right? And so looking at the living wage, for example, for somebody with 0 children, in order to be able to meet these type of expenses in the city of Chicago, the likelihood is that they're going to need a job that pays them in the range of $16. So these are some of the conversations that are happening with your students at our schools to try to help them understand what they're getting ready for. And obviously the expenses will vary depending on the circumstance of our students and where they're living and how they're moving and the kinds of support that they have at home. And so this is just to kind of give you an idea of the trends here in Chicago and what our students are getting ready for. Now, to pursue a job, one of the questions that we often get is, what's the likelihood that I can get a job with just the high school diploma? So pre-COVID, we were seeing a projected growth of 5%. What that means is that jobs that were being created in the US, about 5 out of every 100 were a type of job that did not require more than a high school diploma. So if you look at the scope of things, there are some jobs that are available with no more than a high school diploma, but they're not growing at the rate that others are growing. The other thing that we've also noticed is that a lot of these jobs that only require a high school diploma often also require several years of some kind of related experience. And that is something that some of our students are acquiring even while they're with us, because they're participating in all sorts of internships. By the way, there is a One Summer Chicago opportunity that happens through the city, and the application has opened. So if your students are interested in participating in that, I strongly encourage you guys to have your children apply. And this is good for students throughout high school. So it could be 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. Now, the other element of this is that the way that we find jobs or employment is changing. It has evolved. So the old days where you heard it from someone and you circled it in a newspaper, that sort of thing, that still exists, but it's not really the way to find a job these days. So there's a lot of need for networking, getting to know others who are in the field, referrals, that sort of thing. Looking at company websites, looking at search engines, and there's a variety of them, and I'm going to show you a screen in a moment where I have a list of different search engines that your students might start at. Social media is big. Job fairs, going out to the fairs and actually meeting with the employers, being ready to present a resume to talk about their interest in a job. And then recruitment agencies. Some employers use recruitment agencies when they're looking for a very specific type of position or skill. Now, here are some of the steps that our students need to take, and our students are in varying levels of progress in this list that you see here, and it's not all encompassing, but we wanted to share with you just kind of a big picture idea of the steps that need to take place for our students to secure employment. And again, a lot of the things that we see in research and in some of the things that people talk about, a lot of it was pre-COVID. So COVID time has changed even in the way that we're able to onboard people and the kinds of opportunities that are available. So the first thing is to determine the type of employment that our students want, right? So what do they want to experience? What do they want to do? Do they want something that's just going to pay the bills? Or do they want something that is going to help them build their skills and get a better sense of what they really want to get into? Is it full-time? Is it part-time? Creating a resume and a cover letter. This is probably one of those things that our students really struggle with. So oftentimes, in lieu of an application form, the employers will ask for a copy of a resume. And so for students who maybe have had high school jobs or have not, we at the high schools often are able to help our students in even figuring out and outlining the kinds of skills that they have through the courses that they've taken, the internships that they've participated in, activities that they're leading in. Those are the kinds of things that they can put in those resumes, particularly if they've never had a job in the past. They also have to be very intentional about looking for those jobs. And it may not be a job that is close to home. Securing referrals, just like in the college process, they're looking for a recommender. They also need one for employment. Oftentimes, the employers are going to want 1 to 3 references who can speak to the character of our young people. Applying to the jobs and meeting the deadlines, showing up to the interview, showing up on time and ready to talk about themselves and why they're a good fit for that job. And then the last thing, and this is the thing that we're all aiming for, is that the students receive some kind of an offer, and that the students then have the ability to read through it, understand what's being offered to them, particularly in jobs that will offer benefits and the such, being able to review that. And some of the work that we do over the summer can help. We do have small teams that stay during the summer to help our students navigate the process and get unstuck if they get stuck in any point after they leave us or after graduation. On the right side of the screen, I've added a few job sites and boards that you might be able to take a look.
All right, thank you, Maria. Those two, you can imagine, are two of the most popular pathways, both the college pathway and the work pathway, but we still have a couple others that we want to discuss that you may or may not have heard of, or may have not seen broken down and understand completely how to access. So the next one is Trader Apprenticeship Program. Next slide. So the Trader Apprenticeship Program is a combination of on-the-job training and related classroom instruction. And how this is a little bit different than the college pathway where we discussed opportunities for credentials in different areas. This particular opportunity is under the supervision of a journey level craft person or a trade professional. 5 components that make it a trader apprenticeship would include that it's employer driven. So the employer is leading the on-the-job training and connecting to them to the classroom instruction. We talked about on-the-job training and the rewards skill gains. So progressive increases in skills and wages. So as I was going to say student, but as the apprentice moves through the trade and apprenticeship, as they continue to gain skills and time, their wages can increase, and it might also be connected to nationally in industry recognized credentials as well. So some of these trades that you may be familiar with include construction, manufacturing, healthcare, information technology, transportation, and energy. But the idea behind that, work and training, moves you through this pathway. How can you pursue this pathway? Well, again, the apprenticeship program has a sponsor. So in that it's employee driven, that is where the apprenticeship is initiated from. And that can be a single business or a consortium of businesses. We just had a skilled trades fair that was a huge success, supported by the mayor's office and Maria's team here in the Chicago Public Schools, working across departments to really highlight some of the key trade and apprenticeship partnerships that we have in the city. There are union and non-union workplaces where there are opportunities for apprenticeships. Workforce intermediaries, those would include some of our labor organizations. Community colleges offer apprenticeships through their credentialing programs, and our community-based organization as well. So the basic qualifications vary greatly by program, but normally you can't be less than 16 years of age, but most programs require that you're at least 18 years of age. Again, the program length of apprenticeship can vary based on the program model and the sponsor's development of that program, but an average apprenticeship range is between 1 and 6 years. And upon completion of the program, the apprentice will receive a national industry recognized credential from the Department of Labor, which is portable and stackable, meaning that you can use that credential in different areas, and you can continue to build on those credentials being stackable to increase your credential values. So you could go from a basic certificate to advanced certificates in your apprenticeship credentialing. Next steps and resources. Before you start, just decide, is this apprenticeship right for you? It's good for individuals that like hands-on technical work. So if you're thinking about your child or the student that you are supporting, what kind of learner are they? Where do they find the most joy? Do they enjoy studying in a classroom setting in college? Would they prefer the work pathway, or are they a learner that learns from watching people and would benefit from being connected to an apprenticeship and trade opportunity? You find the apprenticeship. Here's an amazing list of apprenticeship finder that Maria put in this slide. Anything from how to become an apprentice links to, I think I saw women in trades, which is one of our favorites, Cisco, the metalworking skills. So there are a lot of opportunities out there for students who want to pursue this pathway to find opportunities to connect to people that will help them learn and work and build the skills at the same time. And then, of course, apply and interview. Next. Job training, Maria.
Thank you, Jenny. So the apprenticeships are so interesting because that is kind of a little bit of college, a little bit of working, and the student is earning as they're learning. And so that's oftentimes we talk about it as the earn as you learn option. Now, some of our students are thinking, I'm telling you, I need a little bit of help, but I don't want to do the school thing anymore. So job training programs might be an option for them. To talk a little bit about what those are. So there's a variety of them, and it depends on who's putting it out and who's sponsoring it. But job training programs typically have to deal with upskilling and workforce development. And so sometimes they come through work experience programs. One program that we work with quite frequently is Year Up, which allows our students to go through the motions of having some coaching and mentoring as they're experiencing something in finance or business, that sort of thing. And they're gaining skills, and in some cases they're gaining credentials related to the kind of skills that are needed in that job. Sometimes it comes from educational institutions. A big partner for us is City Colleges of Chicago. They offer a number of industry validated certificates and programs in trade type of opportunities. And so it oftentimes has to do with very job specific coursework, and it's linked very directly to a certificate. Government programs, one that is very popular that many people know about is WIOA. And so those are typically government programs, could include state and federally funded programs that again are trying to get people back to work. And then there's customized programs. Sometimes employers are looking for very specific skill or very specific extra sort of help. And so they may work as an employer or as an association of employers. And so the types of programs that are available will vary by the industry. I know we're talking very broadly about these things today, but depending on what our students are interested in, school counselors and post-secondary coaches are zoning in with the students and helping handhold through that process. Many of our schools do have college and career centers. I truly encourage you to have your students visit those and to start to know the team that is there to work with them on all things post-secondary. Many of our students take advantage of that throughout the year, and some students just now are starting to discover it. Now, how to pursue this? One thing that we often talk about is looking to see if the career or that job thing that they're interested in is in demand. And this is where we kind of start talking a little bit about consumer ed of life beyond high school, right? So this is one way to look at it. There's an Outlook handbook that is put out, and that gives a picture of where the jobs are growing, where the jobs are being created, where the jobs are moving. So this is one good handbook to take a look at. Also, looking at the types of duties that the job or that training will include. So looking at a job description is always a good strategy. What kinds of things will they require of me? Am I going to enjoy those things, or am I going to be miserable? So the difference between waking up on a Monday morning and being excited to get on into traffic or into public transit and getting to it versus the dreading having to do it. So looking at a job description really helps. And then also thinking in a meaningful way, thinking about the kinds of experiences that we want to get out of these type of opportunities. So helping our students think through that is very valuable, and that's something that you can do at home. Talk about, what do you want? What kind of experiences? What makes you happy? What do you think you can do? Do you enjoy that? What kinds of things do you think you want to learn and would make you happy? So just a few things to consider as you're helping your students think through the decisions that they're going to be making in the next couple of months. And these are some of the things to consider in terms of WIOA. So some people have asked me, well, what is WIOA? A lot of our community-based organizations are sponsors of this or manage these. And so if you have a trusted community-based organization in your community, you might want to stop in and find out what's available to get more of our community members back to work. So this was actually instituted back in 2014 through President Obama. It typically benefits people in the age range of 16 to 24. Most of what is part of it is job training programs that are funded by the Department of Labor. Department of Labor is definitely one of those websites that you want to become familiar with, and you want to encourage your students to visit and check out. They have a number of resources, quick guides on things that they can do, even helping them tutorials and helping them put together, prepare for interviews, that sort of thing. And then the last thing I'll mention is that the eligibility requirements for the WIOA typically include, and this is something that you have to kind of look at when you're looking into it and wanting to do this or benefit from it, but it typically includes US citizens or non-citizens authorized to work in the US. It requires a social security number. Students or young people must be 18 or older. And then selective service registration for males is a requirement, and additional requirements may apply. So you definitely need to explore this if this is something that interests you, for you yourself, or even for your young persons at home. And these are some of the next steps and resources. What we've put in these green boxes are quick links. We do have a website, by the way, our Learn.Plan.Succeed website on cps.edu, but we wanted to put these in here so that you can quickly link into them if you do have access to this PowerPoint, and I believe you're going to get this so you can quickly get to them. But here are some things to consider, again, always before our students start deciding what specific job training programs that might be right for them. Researching the industries that are interested them. Some our young people might want something to do with food, or some might want to do something that has to do with construction, or some might want something that has to do with math and numbers. It could be a number of things, and it can range. And there are opportunities in almost every industry. Then finding the job training programs. And again, these links that we put in the green boxes can be a starting point. And there's so many more. They'll never fit on one slide. Or one website. Apply. If you don't apply, you'll never know if you can get in or not. And if you don't get it on the one try, you can get it on the second or the third or maybe the 10th. And then interviewing. So always showing up for those interviews. I used to represent a number of universities, and I'll use the experience here for anything: employment, job training programs, college. The interview is a very intimidating process for our young people, particularly when it's the first time that they're doing it. So one thing you might do at home is help the student anticipate what kind of questions they might get, and then helping them answer the questions. Talking to other people is not the most easy thing to do. So anticipating the questions that they might get and how they might respond to it. All right, so let's talk a little bit about service learning and gap year programs.
All right, thank you, Maria. So this probably is Maria might be able to tell you specifically, but probably the pathway of least pursued in Chicago Public Schools currently. But I also think it's a very interesting option for students. You know, each of our young people is an individual and has their own vision for their future that may or may not include the previous 4. So 6 pathways, we've talked about 4. This is number 5. We have 1 more after this. But one thing about the service learning or gap year program that our team has adopted as a mantra is that it's a gap year, not a nap year. And often students will say, I'm just taking a year off, so mark me with gap year. And it's really not a year off, it's really a year on. It's a year on in exploration and service, really understanding the student self-discovery, career exploration, and understanding what their place in the world might be. So if they're a student that is committed to social change and wants to commit to dedicating a year to pursuing that experience and seeing how their voice can be heard and developing that could be something that they could look into a more structured gap year program to pursue. Kind of in my mind somewhat overlaps with job training in some spaces because some of the job training programs are also thought of as something that you do while waiting to pursue something else. So one thing I thought about is disaster relief. The FEMA Corps would be like a job training program, but also for someone that wanted to commit a year to building houses as a part of Habitat for Humanity, or other social commitments that they want to make, they would all fit under this gap year. But it's really experiential learning that they take on prior to pursuing their career or their post-secondary education. Next. It's about what makes sense for you. So in the thinking about the gap year, you'd be planning a lot of your independent activities independently. Like I mentioned, if you have a specific social justice commitment, or if you want to pursue any type of service, that would be something that the student could put together, or about joining an official gap year program. And that decision comes down to budget, how much structure and support you desire, what the student's current connections are to their passion in the gap year program. So if there's a lot of structure already built in because of their previous work, or if they're connected to a church or a community or a particular agency, they might be able to plan this independently. But if they know they're passionate about the environment and they know they want to commit a year of service towards helping the environment, they could look for a program that has a little more structure that they could join and spend that year doing that. Next slide. So it did mention some colleges have gap year programs built in. So there are options to pursue that along with your college acceptance. And you can often take a year to focus on that gap year and then defer your enrollment or delay your enrollment until the previous year. Next steps and resources, talk to people. You don't do this alone. So not only your school council and your family, but others that have pursued this pathway. On others that have thought that maybe they weren't ready to commit to the other 4 more structured pathways, and thought that through this experience of a gap or service year, they would find out a little bit more about themselves and a little bit more about what they wanted to do with their future. It can be an amazing opportunity of discovery. And so that when you are ready to commit to one of the other pathways, you have had the opportunity to really understand more about yourself and what your goals for your future are. So make a list of goals, decide where to go and what to do, tackling the logistics, especially if you're deferring college, all that's involved with making that happen, and start planning and budgeting early. This is not an informal process. The gap year can involve more interviews, more logistics than even the previous 4 pathways that we've discussed. So it's not something that a student would come to in June of their senior year and just say, oh, my option is gap year. I'm just going to take a year off and do something. This takes as much investment and research as the other pathways, but can be very rewarding. Here's some examples. I mentioned the FEMA Corps for those that wanted to dedicate themselves to disaster relief. There's also AmeriCorps. Many of you may know City Year folks that have supported schools, but a lot of options for pursuing this pathway as well. Off to the military, Maria. Another service heart. If you have a service heart, maybe you do a gap year or service project, maybe you serve in the military.
And that's exactly what this is. And this is the last one we're going to be talking about. But military is an all-volunteer force. And it really is 5 branches that pretty much oversee and take care of our country, from the air, from the waters, from the land. And so it's Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, and the Reserve and National Guard. So I'll talk a little bit about the process for this one. Typically, the requirements include that the student must be a U.S. citizen or a U.S. permanent resident. In order to enlist, they must be at least 17 years old or 18 or older without parent consent. If they're 17, or they're going to need parent consent. Education, typically, they do require a high school diploma or the equivalent, a GED. There is a test, and this one's a very critically important test. It's and we call it the ASVAB, but really the ASVAB stands for Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. And this is a critically important test because it will determine the type of job that the student qualifies for, the person qualifies for in the military. And so they get to pick from essentially a selection of options on the basis of that ASVAB assessment. So this is critically important. And then there's health and fitness requirements as well. So they must pass a physical test, they must meet certain weight limits, and each service has very different fitness standards. So that's the other component to keep in mind. Again, when speaking generally about military branch, in every single one of them might have specific requirements. Can a student attend college while doing this? Yes. Students can enroll in the military immediately after high school, or they can do it in combination with college. They can be in college and maybe do a JROTC program there, and that does pay for their schooling, with a commitment that they will serve after they finish college. And there's a number of ways. What we did is we put a link here, and we really encourage you to take a look at this one, because there's different ways to enter and benefit from the military involvement. And then the last thing I'll mention here is that in order to get through the process, typically our students will depend very heavily on the recruiters. So the recruiters will do a lot of the hand holding through the process of taking the ASVAB, figuring out the next steps, and then taking those steps that they need to go through. So getting to know a recruiter is going to be very helpful. And we put some links here, and we also have them on the Learn.Plan.Succeed website. But here's a few things to think about. Research the military branches. I think by the time they reach high school, some of our students already know what branches they're really interested in. We're going to be having some military fairs this month, so stay tuned for that. Our students are going to be invited to those. We're having 4 throughout the city, and so we're really excited about that. Contact the recruiters once they decide what branch they're really interested in and why they're interested in that branch and the kinds of benefits that they're going to get and how that's going to help them throughout their life. It's contacting that recruiter, and the recruiter can oftentimes help in figuring out answers to those questions. Then they're going to report to what we call the MEPs to take the ASVAB, that test that I was talking about. And typically MEP stands for Military Entrance Processing Station. So they're going to go to a station where they're going to take that ASVAB test. They're going to go through their physical exam. They're going to meet with a career counselor of sorts at the military. And then they will accept and take the oath of enlistment. Then they will go through what is in the military. There's a lot of acronyms, by the way. MOS stands for Military Occupational Specialty. And so that will describe the different jobs and options that are available to our applicants or to the recruits. And then they have to await orders for basic training. And sometimes our students are able to delay that for a year, and that's what they call delayed entry program. And again, they could get their orders within that first year. Okay, so we kind of sped through all of this. One of the things that we did want to emphasize is that you are, as parents and guardians and trusted adults in the lives of our students, you can start the conversation at home, and this is going to be critically important. One thing that we have done and that we're going to be mailing out to you starting next week, we had this done in the fall. We usually do it 2 times a year, and we're mailing this out this coming week during spring break. And it's really to help you start the conversation at home. It's a personalized report that we have developed for each of our students in grades 10th, 11th, and 12th. And in this guide, in this report, you're going to see information that is really specific to your student. At the top of it, you're going to see the student's grade point average and SAT scores and any information that we have on our student. You're going to see a list of potential colleges that the student might be able to get into and the types of colleges that are available. You're going to get, and this is the one that I think most of the parents like, is looking at the progress that our students have made towards meeting all graduation requirements. So looking to see how many more English courses they need, how many more math courses they need, how close are they to meeting all graduation requirements. It will give you some next steps that students can take from now to the end of the year and moving forward in the case of the 10th and 11th graders. But for our 12th graders, it's really those immediate steps that they need to take. We talked about a lot of things today, but this is one way that you can kind of zone in and focus your conversation with your student at home. And then the last one is another favorite of our parents and even our students. Our students take an assessment with us in something that we call Naviance. It's a college and career portal that we use with our students. They take a number of assessments, and then that helps us figure out the kinds of interests that students have, careers, strengths, that sort of thing. And that informs that last page, and it'll show trends. Just like we were talking about, look at the Department of Labor. We've made it easier for you. We've prepared a 1-pager with the top 3 careers that that your students have expressed interest in. So you can start that conversation, see how much it pays, what kind of credentials are needed to enter those careers. So that's another one that is a favorite of parents and a favorite of students. And with that said, I think we have a little bit of time to take some questions. I don't see any questions in the chat. I wonder if there were any questions that were submitted that our moderators might call out for us.
If you have any question, you can unmute your microphone, and you can, if you're not feel to speak in English, you can speak in Spanish, right, Maria?
Yes, claro que sí. And Jenny speaks Spanish too.
Yeah,
Jenny
Jenny?
habla español.
Oh, yeah.
Buenas tardes. Una pregunta. Wow, es bastante información, muy importante. A veces uno no ni tiene idea de cuántas oportunidades hay afuera para los niños y uno solamente, en mi caso, desafortunadamente, mi niño, tiene ahora, mi niño, mi adolescente tiene 20 años. Él comenzó el primer año, le tocó el año que estuvimos todo virtual, casi terminando su primer año, decidió que necesitaba un descanso. No es muy bueno para mí porque ahora lo veo como que no tiene mucha ilusión de regresar a la escuela. Mi pregunta es, ¿qué puedo hacer yo en este caso? ¿Esperar que él decida regresar o insistir otra vez y ver que si tal vez lo que él eligió no fue lo que él le ilusionaba o en el momento le llamó la atención, y mejor insistir que a lo mejor si quiere hacer algo diferente?
Jenny, do you want to take this question?
Sure. Gracias por la pregunta, señora Gavina. Nosotros entendemos eso porque los niños han pasado por algo muy difícil en esos 2 años. Y siempre es difícil pensar en el futuro y qué quiere hacer uno. A mí, yo conozco muchos adultos que no saben qué quieren hacer en la vida, right? So, para un muchacho de 18 años que estaba en la pandemia y escogió algo que de pronto no era para él, no es tarde, nunca es tarde. Hay mucho tiempo para él para escoger otra cosa o a lo mejor solo no le conviene lo que era virtual. So yo puse el email allá, aftergraduationhelp@cps.edu. Si su hijo quiere hablar con nosotros, conmigo o con otros consejeros, me gustaría hablar con él, animarlo y informarlo de lo mucho que hay para él tanto en la universidad que oportunidades de trades y de trabajo, porque parece que está desanimado por su experiencia y me encantaría charlar con él a ver si podemos encontrar algo que le conviene. María, ¿tiene algo más para decir?
La pregunta estuvo bien contestada. For those of you who didn't understand what we just shared, the question really was about a student who is now at home, now 20, experienced really the end of his high school journey in pandemic time, and now feels very unmotivated. At least this is what mom is recognizing. And so Jenny, I don't know if you want to answer that question in English.
Sure, but I like it when you translate for me. Yeah, that I think it's so normal that there is a generation, of young people that have had to live through the pandemic and this virtual learning experience, and it just didn't work for them. And so whether in the situation of Gavina's son, it was that maybe it just wasn't the pathway for him, or maybe it was, but the experience doing the whole coursework virtually just wasn't for him. So I offer my email there, aftergraduationhelp@cps.edu. That's for all alumni who need support re-engaging in their pathway or getting conversations, resources, connections. I know there's something for him out there. And if we could have a conversation to discuss his interests, what was good about the college pathway, which wasn't good, and so that we can really find something that works for him. But I feel like it is very normal for them to feel unmotivated or challenged during this particular time. And we're here to be supportive for our students and our alumni. So thank you so much for bringing that forward to us.
Muchas gracias. Otra pregunta. ¿Tendremos acceso a este tema en caso de que le pondría este tema a él para que se motivara un poquito?
if you, I don't know, Maria and Jenny, can we share the presentation or go? Or what do
Oh,
you
okay.
think?
Yes, sí. Sí, claro que sí. Lo puedo poner en el chat ahora y este video creo que lo van a publicar también.
Okay.
Yes, we will make this presentation available. I'll put the link in the chat in just a moment. And I believe that the FACE team is going to publish this video.
Yes, we did. And also if you leave the parents, if they leave the email, so we can send by email the presentation. But I need to be sure asking you before we share, we need to your permission.
Absolutely. Anytime that you see Maria or Jenny present, you can share it with the world. And we're always available. If anyone has questions, we're always happy to take emails, calls, texts, whatever. If you stop us at a grocery store, we will talk to you.
Okay, and thank you so much. I think this presentation is very important for all our parents, like a parent for the CPS. And I had two students in college. I told the parents all the time, never is too early to start talking to college, even though in the elementary school. And I feel sad because this presentation is very important for everyone. And we had just 9 participants. So I hope next time we have more participants, and please share all this information for all. Thank you so much, Maria and Jenny. A pleasure to meet with you again. And I hope to see you working in person. So I want to send emails later. So yeah, because for me, this is very important to have these workshops with the parents.
Lourdes, thank you so much for hosting us. And I just want to say one last thing before we leave. Parents, you are one of the most valuable parents and trusted adults. You are one of the most valuable people in the lives of our young people. The conversations that you have with your young people will really sink in.
Mm-hmm.
We have seen scenarios where our students are ready to go, full scholarships, housing set up, and if mom, dad, or that trusted adult is not on board with them, they won't do it. So start having those conversations at home and don't be afraid of the unknown. I'm going to pass it to Jenny to see if she has any final comments and encouragement for our parents.
Very well said, but I'll just add that we always say in our persistence work that the family transitions to college or their life after high school pathway. So we understand that this is not just about the student making the transition from high school to post-secondary, it's a family experience. And we value your partnership, parents, and all of the support that we can mutually provide to help our CPS students find success in life. So we're grateful for the opportunity to have the microphone today and speak to you, parents. And like you said, just spread the word, share the presentation with everyone in your neighborhood, share the conversations and emails with your friends, your comadres, your people in your school building. If you bring this back to your school building, they can watch it. And know that Chicago Public Schools is walking hand in hand with you to find success for all of our students.
In another thing that we would like to share with the parents, that this is next week is the spring week. So vacation for the students is the time to start to talk to the students. So there is a lot of scholarships if you have senior students. So I can share my I have one of my daughter is in senior in college. She got a full ride. So, and I had another son, my other son, she had another, he will be a teacher. So she had a golden apple. And it's what I say all the parents. So CPS had a lot of scholarship. There is a lot of recruits to come to the PU. So we happy to share all my, the information, and I'm happy if my kids can do it, your kids can do it. So this is the time to go to start basic college, because basic college is very important when the students, especially when you see the kids not very encouraged to go to college. If they see the college, they motivate a lot. So you have any another question? If you now have more questions, so thank you so much. All the parents, thank you so much, Maria and Jenny. And this presentation, I feel like this is very important. And thank you so much, everyone. And enjoy this spring break.
Muchas gracias.